talk about the difference between a cult, a religion, and a church. Before you call something a cult, let's define it. Because when you blur the lines, you actually make it harder for the people to protect the real victims. I was born and raised in one of the most notoriously abusive cults in modern history. It was a Christian cult. I escaped when I was 20 years old. Now I expose corrupt cults and organizations who profit off the abuse of children, and I train law enforcement to combat child exploitation and trafficking. Here's how I define a church, a cult, and a religion, and why the difference matters. So let's start here. A religion is typically a structured set of beliefs. Typically, it's based around a certain higher power or divine entity. It often includes sacred texts or rituals or moral codes, or a worldview that's based on spiritual or metaphysical teachings. So examples are Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism. Now, religion or belief is not inherently dangerous. What can become dangerous is when people abuse their power and use religion to control people. And a lot of religions use fear to keep people in line, like the fear of eternal damnation in hell. Now, a church is an organized community of people who believe or practice or promote a shared religion. Churches can be healthy. They can be great community. They can also foster a lot of abuse. So it just depends on the leadership, the culture, the beliefs, and the transparency or oversight. Now, a cult is a group of people, religious or ideological, who follow a leader that teaches them what to think and controls how they live their lives. That's why it's important to understand the difference, because a lot of people call everything a cult, and that's not helping us identify who's really a victim, and it's definitely not helping us protect the children. So a cult is not defined by what it believes. It's defined by how it controls their members' lives, mindsets, and lifestyles. A cult uses the structure of religion or ideology to control, to isolate, and to exploit, often physiologically, spiritually, financially, and even sexually. Unlike religions, you don't come and go. You don't leave a cult whenever you want. You don't have self-governance, and you don't have the freedom to make your own life choices. Now, there's adults who decide to join cults. What I'm going to focus on are the children born and raised in cults that did not consent, but also don't have access to the outside world. So you can spot a cult by its dynamics, not just the doctrine. Generally, there's a leader with absolute power. Generally, they make their own rules, so the public isn't aware of what they really believe. There's a corporate brochure version, and then there's what the real members really know once you earn that place. There's control over information, relationships, children, behavior, and mindsets. They're generally heavy on fundraising and recruiting, and there's generally a punishment, or at the very least, you're highly ostracized if you leave or are disobeying. There's all kinds of control and manipulation. There's this us versus them mentality, but there's also no tolerance for questioning. So if you're not for us, you're against us. I understand some of this can apply to many religions and churches, but why is it important to understand the difference?